Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of Venture Center, I extend a warm welcome to all the dignitaries, guests, and everyone gathered here today to grace the occasion of e-launch of MeitY SAMRIDH Accelerator at Venture Center. The startup accelerator of MeitY for product innovation, development, and growth. In short, SAMRIDH is an initiative of the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. The program is meant to accelerate potential digital tech startups to scale and take their enterprise to the next level while solving some of the pressing problems of the country and creating a positive impact. Among many other support, the program also offers interesting funding support to the selected startups. We are very happy to announce that Venture Center is one of the incubators in the country that has been selected to implement the SAMRIDH Accelerator program. Briefly about Venture Center. Venture Center is India's leading inventive enterprises and science-based deep tech business incubator. It is based in Pune and hosted by CSIR National Chemical Laboratory. The center, in its last 15 years of existence, has supported more than 700 startups and entrepreneurs that are knowledge-intensive and work with IP-driven business ideas. Venture Center works closely with DST, DBT, DSIR, MeitY, Ministry of Defense, and contribute to several national missions. Center hosts more than 65 to 75 startups as resident incubators at any given point of time. Venture Center has received several national and international recognitions like National Award for Incubator 2015, ABI Business Incubator of the Year 2018, National Entrepreneurship Award 2019, Best Bioincubator in 2021 by Biospectrum Survey. Venture Center supported startups are developing solutions which are for some of the most pressing problems of the society, many of which are first in India and also for the world. Via SAMRIDH program, Venture Center aims to align with MeitY's goal and help digital technology startups unlock their full potential and raise the next level of funding and investments. The Accelerator program will run for 6 months for a highly selected cohort under 2 tracks. We are happy to announce that we have completed selection of the cohort for the program, and we will be introducing the cohort soon in a few minutes from now. Before I move in, I would also like to take you through what is lined up in the event today. We will start with welcome remarks by Dr. Premnath, who is the Director of Venture Center, and then we'll proceed to invite Mr. Jitendra Vijay, CEO of MeitY Startup Hub, to kindly launch the program. Following this, we would also request him to present his address to the audience. After this, we'll move on to introduce the selected cohort, and we'll take a few minutes after that to thank all the mentors, investors who have contributed so far and have agreed to associate with the program. We would conclude the first session with vote of thanks from Dr. Premnath, and then we'll move on to a very interesting talk by our investor, Dr. Rajan Shrikant, for another investor series talk of Venture Center. Now, I would like to request Dr. Premnath Venugopalan, Director, Venture Center, Chief Scientist, CSIR NCL, to present his welcome remarks. Over to you, Dr. Premnath.
Thank you, Shoma. Thanks a lot. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to everybody. First of all, this particular program is the first time that Venture Center is doing a joint program with MeitY. So we're very excited about it, not only because the association with MeitY, but also because it allows us to look at new domains where Venture Center can contribute in supporting and mentoring and also nurturing several different startups which are in the deep tech space, but leveraging a lot more of electronics, IT, and the digital world. So first of all, let me recognize and welcome all the startups here, right? This whole thing is for startups, and we are all trying very hard as a collective ecosystem to build things out so that many of these startups go on to build future industries of the country. So, you know, this particular event is also meant for you, and this accelerator is also meant specifically for this community. I want to welcome Jeet Vijay. Well, Jeet is a very familiar name to us. He's been in Pune. We have engaged a lot in the past as well. So thank you very much, Jeet, for joining in today. Really pleasure to have you. And of course, next time you're in Pune, we would love to have you here in person as well. So welcome, Jeet. very happy to see that Jeet has taken over reins at the MeitY Startup Hub and leading that. His expertise will be very valuable for the MeitY Startup Hub as well. MeitY has initiated several programs for startups, and clearly this is a sector which is buzzing with activity, and this is something which Venture Center had to also play an important role in. We have been working in a lot of sectors which are relevant to MeitY, but this is the first time that we are formally engaging with MeitY, so we're very happy about that association as well. And this particular association also gave us another very good opportunity, which was to associate formally with TiE Pune. We have been working with TiE Pune, engaging with them for many years now. The domains and the levels of interest were intersecting, but this is the first time that the intersection is much larger, and therefore we could also engage with TiE Pune a lot more deeply, and it's great to have association of TiE with this particular program, because TiE is probably today the world's largest entrepreneur network, and the Pune chapter is very active. It also runs some very highly visible programs, including the TiE Nurture program, which Advait Kulekar, who's here, is going to lead this year. Advait, your hand up, please, so that others can see you. Yeah, and also there's a very interesting program that TiE runs for women entrepreneurs across the world, and there's an international pitch event that happens. And last 2-3 years, Pune winners have been from Venture Center Network as well. So even more the reason to participate. We're very grateful for all the TiE Pune mentors also who have joined us today. I won't go into all the names right now, but I also want to thank our mentors from Venture Center who are continuously being involved in many of our programs, including some of our investor mentors who bring in a very different perspective in all these activities. Beyond that, such programs like accelerators are, it should be clear that it is something where the focus on getting startups to move along in the right direction with the help of advisors and mentors is key to such programs, to the success of such programs. But at the end, investors will play a very critical role. And a lot of investors have actually already signed up for our demo day. It's listed on our website, and many more are still signing up. So this is something which I hope all the participants will also benefit from. And this network will also be a valuable network for this ecosystem as well. So with that, I think let me welcome everybody, and especially Jeet. And I hope, I'm not sure if Shrikant has already joined, but I'm glad and I should thank him for taking the time out to participate in the session today. He also comes with a very interesting background. As I'll tell you later, he's one of the very few people who I know who has been in the academic world, who's been in the strategy consulting world, who's been an entrepreneur, who's been an investor, who's been a not-for-profit organization leader as well. Very few people come with those kinds of diverse backgrounds. So I hope to hear from him as the leader of Kiritsu Forum, Chennai and Singapore today, later in the day as well. So over to you, Shoma, and welcome, Jeet. Thank you very much for agreeing to come and launch this SAMRIDH workshop, SAMRIDH Accelerator here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Premnath, for very warm welcome remarks. And before we get started with today's launch session, few administrative announcements. Request all the participants other than the speakers and the guests to kindly stay on mute at all times. If you have any questions, comments, please feel free to use the chat box. And we'll be requesting you at some point in time to switch on your video for a quick photo session. But we'll announce that before the session happens. Now we move on to the launch session. And I would like to request Mr. Jitendra Vijay, CEO of MeitY Startup Hub, MeitY, to formally launch the SAMRIDH Accelerator at Venture Center. Since this is an online event, we will not be able to light a lamp or something, but I request you, Mr. Jitendra Vijay, to announce that the accelerator is formally launched, and my colleague will be pressing the launch button from here. Over to you, Mr. Vijay.
Thank you so much, Soma, and thank you so much, Dr. Premnath, for this opportunity. And before we get into any further talk, it's with a great pleasure and honor that we are officially launching the Venture Center MSH SAMRIDH cohort today. So congratulations to you guys, and good luck to all the startups that will be part of this cohort.
Yeah, kindly declare that it is launched and we will just launch it.
Yeah, it is launched. Officially
yeah, thank
launched
you.
Now.
Thank you so much. Now we would request you that if you can just address our audience and share a few words, especially the vision behind the SAMRIDH program, and also what could be the other future opportunities that MeitY would provide for the startups going ahead. Over to you, please.
Thank you so much. Again, it's a great honor and a privilege to be here with all the startups that are part of the program, the mentors and the ecosystem stakeholders who have joined today. Pune has become a vibrant startup hub. And I think in a great part, it's due to Venture Center and what Dr. Premnath has done over the last close to a decade or so now. It's been a long journey, and he's truly been an instrument of change and institutionalization in Pune for everything that's related to startup. And his contribution will be very much appreciated for a long time to come for what he has done. And Pune provides a really fertile ground for what we are trying to do, right? If we talk about Bangalore being the Silicon Valley of India, Pune is the Silicon Hill of India. Pune is more equivalent to Austin, Texas, if Bangalore is more equivalent of the Silicon Valley. Pune is known as the Oxford of East. It has the largest, educational institutions with their heritage. So, young mind, the talent, the passion is there. It has the, very unique industry setup. There's a hardware and electronics industry, but there's also software industry. So as the world moves towards smart hardware and all the innovations that are happening in IoT or AI and, all the emerging tech areas, Pune has that ecosystem with hardware and software. Pune has the largest number of German companies outside of Germany. So there's a lot of international, plus there's a lot of diaspora that's moving to Pune. And I was one of them. So I think it's a great place. And thanks to Dr. Premnath, where we are today in the startup ecosystem. Now talking about what Ministry of Electronics and IT's bigger vision is with regards to supporting startups across India. So I'll take a minute or two to describe our various initiatives because some of you might not have much knowledge about it. So Ministry actually created Startup Hub a few years ago with the focus that all the startup related activities, initiatives and schemes and programs should be run through one single window. Because Ministry has the hardware division, software division, emerging tech division, R&D division, and every division does something for these startups, but it wasn't able to generate the momentum and the scale that is needed and make it easy of operating for startups. So MeitY Startup Hub was created. Now today at MeitY Startup Hub, we are helping startups in 6 different ways. One is through various funding schemes. So we have funding scheme called Tide 2.0 as well as SAMRIDH and NGIS and EDF and others. So we provide funding at idea level, at prototype creation, at commercialization through our Tide 2.0 funding scheme. We provide matching funding through SAMRIDH scheme for acceleration level startups. Then we have a NGS, new generation incubation scheme that's only focused on tier 2, tier 3 towns and cities, startups there. And then we have what is called EDF, Electronic Development Fund. It's a fund of fund which is managed by Can Bank, which invests in VC fund, which invests in hardware and electronic startups. So if you look at our schemes, everything from idea to hyper growth level. Aside from funding, we help take our startups international. So we have international programs with UK, France, Germany, We are coming as something in Middle East as well with Saudi Arabia soon. And aside from taking international, we try to bring more corporates into the ecosystem. So we are doing various programs with Google. We did the AppScale Academy. We are doing something with Meta. We are doing something with a bunch of Microsoft currently, and more partnership programs are coming up in the next month or so that you'll hear about. Also, what we do is we try to get government to adopt startup solution, which is a critical part. So we work with Ministry of Railway, Ministry of Telecommunication, MEA, Ministry of External Affairs, work with Ministry of Road and Roadways, so MODS, work with MAUA Urban Development or Urban Affairs. So the idea is that a lot of these ministries come to us with problem statements, and we get solutions from startup for these problem statements. Also, we are working with the BSF, with the SSB, with various other government bodies, so that we can get more startup solutions adopted. Now, all these things are available on our website. So you guys should be aware, and you should check our website, and all these funding opportunities, opportunities for pilot, opportunities for access to resources is available for you guys for the central government, Ministry of Electronics. Now, having said that, I think SAMRIDH is a great opportunity because what government has realized is that we have 72,000 plus startups, but how many of them can be scaled up? Just having a sheer number of startups at foundation level is not sufficient to create the economic growth, the prosperity, the wealth, the social development that is needed. So scalability is a critical factor. And so we came out with a SAMRIDH scheme, which is focused on taking startups that are market ready and helping them scale up. Be it through customer connect, international market expansion, product portfolio diversification, whatever the strategy might be fit according to the incubator management team and the startups need, then the incubator and the startup will come together to figure out how do you scale up and how do you get funded and get customers. So this is a pilot scheme that we have launched. Our goal is to support 300 startups in the scheme in the next 2 years. And if the scheme's outcome will allow us to better understand what more changes we need to do, and we'll be looking to launch a larger version of the scheme. Also, by December, I think we are looking to launch a new scheme. It's going to be a 450 crore scheme, focus on funding startups from tier 2, tier 3 cities, preferably. I mean, it'll still be open to tier 1, but our goal here is that we need to make innovation, entrepreneurship, and employment distributed across India. All the startups should not necessarily gravitate towards Bangalore, Mumbai, Delhi, NCR. Startups in Nashik should stay in Nashik if they can get funding access there. If you are in Ahmedabad, you should have access to the same kind of resources that you get in Mumbai. So that's why we are coming with this new funding scheme as well. And our hope and our goal is that in the next year, we'll do more refined, targeted schemes and programs, both for women, focused programs, plus disadvantaged sections of the society, and the geographies which are not preferred. So all these three are the areas that we are looking at to come up with new programs and initiatives and funds, so that we can tackle all these three areas which are not fully covered yet, so that entrepreneurship can become a right for everybody and not just an opportunity for big college graduates or the people in the big cities. So with that, I would like to close my remark and wish you guys all great success and best of luck in this journey, and really looking forward to some amazing outcomes from this program through Venture Center. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeet. I just wanted to use this opportunity to also tell you that, by the way, audience should know that Jeet is himself is an entrepreneur, has run a fund in the US, in Texas. It's I think you ran the UT Horizon Fund, right? And also as part of Texas Austin, besides, of course, founding incubators and so on and so forth. So, I know you'll be busy, but interested in being part of our mentoring team?
No, I need mentoring from you because you are the key pillar of the ecosystem. But I'm very happy to be available as and when needed, because ultimately this is the best joy we get. Interacting with the startups. Otherwise, everything is just a number. So whenever and wherever we can help, we'd love to help.
Yes, Jeet. So we will definitely get in touch with you to get us connects, though, right? Especially in Delhi and elsewhere, globally. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah. Over to Shoma, please.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jitendra Vijay, for your very insightful address and talking about very interesting scheme. Request is to please stay back for a few minutes when we introduce our cohort and you get a sense of the kind of companies that are going to be part of the SAMRIDH Accelerator program. For this session, I'm requesting my colleague Pratik to take over and introduce the cohort startups. So as we call out the names, request you to just switch on your videos and give a very crisp 1 to 2 minutes of introduction about yourself and the company.
Yeah, so the first one is Ripple Healthcare.
Kaushal Kothari, can you please switch on your video and give a quick introduction?
Yes, hi, good afternoon, everyone. This is Kaushal from Ripple Healthcare. It's a pleasure to be here. So Ripple Healthcare is a young startup which is working to prevent traumatic injuries among the elderly due to falls. Also, with protection, we are also preventing them from other sort of injuries and predicting the risk of fall using our AI and ML algorithm. So I think that's a quick introduction about what we are and who we are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have Jilma from Cosmosis.
Yeah, hi. Hello, everyone. And thank you so much for this opportunity. And I'm very excited to be part of the first cohort. Yeah. I'm Jilma Perangat, founder and CEO of Cosmosis. So in Cosmosis, we are the pioneers of breath-based medical diagnostics. And we believe that we have the potential to disrupt the medical diagnosis industry. So our device is called CanScan. It is a breath analyzer for screening of breast cancer. So it is a benchtop device, non-invasive, painless, because we are using just exhale breath. So our device can analyze the compounds in the exhale breath, and it can predict whether any disease is present or not. And we are focusing on breast cancer currently. So using our device to detect disease, all one needs to do is breathe. So that's a quick introduction. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jilma. Next, we have Dr. Lohakare from Josh AI.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I am Sharat Chandra Lohakare, CEO of Josh AI Solutions, and we have developed integrated agriculture robo, which automates entire cotton cultivation that includes weed management, crop health monitoring, and cotton harvesting. Josh Robo leverages artificial intelligence for improving productivity and profitability of cotton farmers by reducing cotton cultivation costs by 50%. It saves the environment and soil by reducing use of chemicals, and it operates on a battery using EV module, avoiding use of fossil fuel. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Lohakare. Next, we have Saurabh Bhatt from Alphaeus.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Saurabh Bhatt, industrial designer and project manager here at Alphaeus Tech. We have developed a VR-based eye testing solution, the Intelligent Vision Analyzer Plus, for detecting glaucoma in individuals. Our solution is clinically validated by Aravind Eye Hospital, Pondicherry, and Johns Hopkins School of Medicine. Our solution is 10 times cost-effective and 100 times compact, thereby making it portable and easy to reach in remote areas for testing. Thank you.
Thank you, Saurabh. Next, we'll have Dr. Shelke from Rechargian.
Good afternoon. This is Dr. Vilas Shelke from Rechargian Energy Private Limited. We are developing rechargeable battery based on sodium ion chemistry, which is alternative to lithium ion chemistry, the existing market candidate. So our battery is much safer, cheaper, and totally developed in India, and it has a long life. Thank you so much.
Now we have the track 2, 6 startups for the investor readiness program. We'll begin with DD Labs. Pratik Bhalerao, kindly introduce himself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Pratik. I'm a co-founder and CEO of DD Labs. We are a technology startup founded in 2016 with initial support from Venture Center Pune. Our primary focus area is next generation assistive devices for people with locomotor disability. Our first product is a ProGraph, design award-winning multifunctionality hand prosthesis for upper limb amputees. We have been supported through various grants from BIRAC and NSTDB. Happy to be part of this cohort. Looking forward to it. Thank you. Thank you much.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Ronak Sutaria from Respiral Living Sciences. Ronak, are you there with us?
Sorry, yeah, hi. My name is Ronak Sutaria. I run a startup in Pune called Respiral Living Sciences. We basically build neighborhood level, hyperlocal air quality and GHG emissions monitoring equipment. It's primarily focused towards regulators, which will be pollution control boards, and listed companies who have emissions. So it's a B2B and a B2G focused solution. We are a 5-year-old startup. Very happy to be here in this cohort.
Thank you, Ronak. Next, we'll have Sudhir from SIS3. Can you introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Sudhir from SIS3 Technologies. We are innovating products to lower the cost of solar energy generation and storage. We came up with our product Sun Captor, which is the highest gain tilted single axis tracker. And when you combine it with bifacial panels, it gives 35 to 40% gain and reduce the cost of energy. We strongly believe this program will help us to accelerate our journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Sudhir. Next, we have Ajay from Rocket Run. Kindly introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone. Myself Ajay Kabadi. I'm founder and CEO of Rocket Run Tech Private Limited. We work with manufacturing plants in steel and automotive, where we leverage our AI-powered video analytics platform, thereby increasing the manufacturing operations, brings an enhancement to their efficiency, safety, and effectiveness. So we work with a lot of largest steel manufacturing plants and automotive companies. Yeah.
Thank you. Next, we have Ashwin from Divish Mobility, which goes by the brand name Battery Pool.
Everyone, I'm Ashwin. I'm the founder of Battery Pool. And at Battery Pool, we're building smart battery swapping stations for electric two-wheelers and three-wheelers. The idea being that in these swapping stations, you can go and exchange your discharged battery pack for a fully charged battery pack. So you can get a fully charged battery in 30 seconds as opposed to waiting multiple hours to recharge your electric vehicle. Our IP is around the IoT hardware and software, which allows us to deploy these swapping stations at scale in a manpower light and asset light manner. Today, we have deployed over 130 swapping stations, and we're using this program to get to the next level of scale at Battery Pool. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashwin. The last one, we have Subho Sarkar from SNRAS.
Hello, everyone. This is Shubho from SNRAS. And SNRAS is a fisheries startup. We are helping the farmers to increase their productivity 4 to 8 times using our patented system Blue Box and the IoT. And we are also helping farmers to have the market linkage. So we have a vision to develop India's first end-to-end blockchain from eggs of the fishes to the export of the fishes, influencing life of at least 3 lakhs fish farmers and women, and developing at least 2 million tons of fishes by 2029. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to all the startups who took out their time and to introduce yourselves. And we wish you great success, both for your startup journey as well as a part of this program. Thank you so much. So we now move on to the next section, which is about thanking our mentors, investors, partners who have agreed to support us during SAMRIDH program and who are there with us throughout our journey of incubation and entrepreneurship via Venture Center. So here I would like to thank a few of our mentors who have already started associating with us. They have been extremely supportive during the selection and diagnostic phase for the startups. I would like to start with Mr. Advait Kudlekar, who is the CEO, Upohan Management Consultants and Charter Member of TiE Pune Chapter. Moving on, Ms. Pratima Kirloskar from Kirloskar Brothers Limited. and ex-president TiE Pune and co-chair CII National Committee on CSR and President Innovation Society. Mr. Shrikant Sharda, who is a charter member of TiE Pune and managing director, client group lead Accenture Technology. Mr. Surendra Agarwal, the chairman, Product Accelerator Private Limited, and he's also charter member of TiE Pune. Moving on next, we have Mr. Krishna Iyer, who is an angel investor. He's been advisor to the Bharat Innovation Fund. Dr. Naveen Kabra, he is the co-founder and CTO, Reliscore, advisor at FinIQ, Innoviti, Nidhi EIR, Nidhi Prayas are some of the committees. He's part of those committee and he's the chair. Mr. Girindra Kasmalkar is founder and CMD, Ideas to Impact, lead investor, managing partner, Pentathlon Ventures. Neeran Karnik, principal architect, Tarana Wireless, co-founder, clickinfo.com. Our investors, Sachin Oswal, angel investor from Originity LLP. He's an investment committee of Sain IIT Bombay. Dr. Rajan Shrikant, he's a co-president, Keretsu Forum, Chennai, and also chairman and MD of Smart Capital. Mr. Sanjay Kanbinde, co-founder of Lavani Ventures, member advisory council of Bhau Institute. Of course, Dr. Premnath is the founder director of Venture Center and the chief scientist at CSIR NCL. And support from Venture Center team, including Dr. Manisha Premnath, GM and CEO of Venture Center and board member of IPCA Laboratories. And as Dr. Premnath mentioned, we are very happy to partner with TiE Pune for our programs in Venture Center and especially with MeitY SAMRIDH program, where they have agreed to just contribute as the partners on the mentoring phase of the program. Investors will be part of the demo days and they are going to be with us throughout this MeitY SAMRIDH program. We are very, very happy for your support and we look forward to a very fruitful collaboration with TiE Pune. And I would also like to thank few members whose information I recently received that they have shown interest to contribute in the mentoring phase of the program. Mr. Ramesh Mirakur, he's a growth advisory consultant, angel investor, global business and technology executive. Ms. Pratima Kirloskar, I already introduced, same as Mr. Surendra Agarwal. Mr. Anshu Srivastav, he has a VC fund, he's advisor for startups from IIT BHU and also TiE charter member. Mr. Paresh Madani, he is also a mentor and consultant, investor and advisor to startups. Mr. Advait Kurlekar, I have also mentioned about. Mr. Subhas Bal, he is the advisor and mentor. Mr. Hemant Joshi, managing partner at Pentathlon Ventures. And Mr. Ravi Nigam, he is a co-founder and former MD Tasty Bites in Pune. Welcome to all of you and thank you so much for agreeing to participate in our MeitY SAMRIDH program. So with this, we also would like to thank the investors, partners who have agreed to be part of our SAMRIDH program and be part of the demo day, and they have shown interest to at least look at the startup, help them, guide them, and also see if there is a possible investment opportunity going forward. Of course, TiE Pune, they have TiE Angels as well who will be part of it. Social Alpha, Lavani Ventures, Keretsu Chennai Forum, Act Grant, 100x VC, Inflexer Ventures, Bharat Innovation Fund, Mentera, Zintio, India Angel Network, Enzia, and Wilgrow, and many others are in the pipeline whom we are talking and we are onboarding for this particular program. So thank you so much. And we hope that with all this, we will be having a great success for this program. Thank you so much. So with this, we conclude the launch session of the program. I would now request Dr. Premnath to just present vote of thanks. He has already given a very insightful and warm welcome. I would like him to now conclude this launch session with these words. And to Mr. Jitendra Vijay, we'll be very happy if you can stay back for the next part of the program, which is the investor talk. But in case time doesn't permit, it's up to you to decide further. Thank you so much.
I have a home card from my team. He will sit in because I think it's really good what you have. You really put together a good team, a good group of mentors. Being from Pune, so I know most of them, and I think they're high quality, the best you can get. So having TiE Pune on board is great, and Pratima and the team. So really good job for the launch. So thank you so much and good luck. And I'll see you around.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jeet. Thank you for joining in today and for the opening. We are happy to get this started and off the ground, and hopefully in the next few months you will see results, and we will have the occasion to have you come over and also meet all the mentees in person as well. So let me just formally thank everybody out here. I just wanted to point out that this is these kind of programs, and in an accelerator of this kind, mentoring is at the heart of it. So clearly mentors are absolutely critical to this activity, and we are very grateful for everybody who is going to participate in this. We normally do it at few different levels. There will be an in-house team from the Venture Center. There will be a team which will be from TiE Pune that will be helping with the mentoring activities, and our team will coordinate and make all this possible. And also there is another small group which will be giving perspectives which will be very different and probably more from an investor perspective. One of this program aims to do a few different things. One of the goals is to raise money for many of these companies. The second is also to look at key areas of the business that you want to improve, to take it ahead to the next level, to find ways to expand sales, expand the business opportunity, and so on and so forth. So we are looking at all those angles as well. And in all this, I think mentors coming from different walks of life, different experiences will all be important. It will not just merely be only focused on one aspect. So it will be an activity in team mentoring, and that basically has its own challenges but has its own advantages as well. So I hope we can all make it work together. I must tell you that when we put out requests to different investors to consider joining our team of investors who were interested in attending the demo days, there was a lot of interest. Okay, and we're very happy about it. They are keen to see what the cohort presents. Of course, we would like it to go through a process where we polish them up before it is ready. It's more about tightening the loose ends, getting things aligned in the right direction, making sure that we have thought through many of those things, and very often trying to get the tough questions asked well in advance. And that's again another role that the mentors play. It's important that they ask you the difficult questions right now before you pitch to the next round of investors. And sometimes it's also about connects. In business, I think everybody realizes immediately after getting into business that networks are probably the biggest assets. And in networks, one cannot underemphasize the importance of diverse business networks. And again, mentors step in to provide those networks. So we're very grateful to all the TiE Pune mentors and other mentors who have agreed to work with us in trying to take this cohort ahead as well. In some ways, this is also an experiment for us because this allows us to create a platform which we can experiment with and build on further in the next round and in the next year, and try and multiply the benefits. And I think MeitY also has that in mind. So I'm keen on that as well. We are also keen to find ways by which many more companies can attract early stage resources so that they are better prepared to meet investors. So that is another area that we are looking forward to, and we are very keen that we engage more deeply with MeitY in the coming years as well. So thank you, Jeet, again for creating those opportunities for many of these startups. I know how much effort goes in the background to create a scheme of this kind. And kudos to you and your team. I can see that you have tried to be very creative and you've tried to do it differently than how a typical government department would do it normally. Of course, you've also created the Startup Hub as an entity, as an independent part of an independent entity as well. So these are all good things, I think, for our ecosystem, and we really look forward to all of that as well. Thanks also to our team who is making it possible. And finally, to the startups. I'm grateful for you to take out the time to be here. Part of the learning is also meeting other startups. You'll be surprised how ideas from other startups can be utilized, leveraged, and very often how innovation actually happens in entangled settings, in the sense that you learn from one line of work and borrow it and adapt it in another line of work. And that is something I think we can only learn by meeting multiple startups as well. So thank you very much, everybody. I think I'll stop here and I'll over to Shoma. I hope we can start with the next session immediately. Thank you. Bye. Thank you, Jeet.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Jitendra Vijay, once again for taking out time. Thanks a lot. So with this, we are a little early of the schedule. So we'll start with the next session of this particular event, where we are going to have a very, very interesting and engaging talk. And this is going to be in the conversation mode. We have with us Dr. Rajan Shrikant, who is the co-president at Keiretsu Forum, Chennai, and MD Smart Capital. And he brings over 20 years of experience in management consulting, a recognized thought leader in strategy, leadership, human capital. He has published and been quoted in the business media. Currently, he is the co-president of Keiretsu Forum and works between Silicon Valley, Singapore, Chennai, actively investing in mentoring startups in India and Southeast Asia. Keiretsu Chennai has made 90 investments in 70 startups since 2015. He is also MD of Smart Capital, a venture advisory firm. Amongst his various prior roles, he was also an assistant professor at the Haas School of Business, University of California, Berkeley. So with this introduction, I welcome you, Dr. Rajan Shrikant, and I request Dr. Premnath to be the moderator of the session and begin the discussion on the topic, which is what venture investors look for in startup pitches when they interact with the investors, their storytelling, and they're about their business. Thank you so much. Over to you, Dr. Premnath.
Okay, great. Thank you, Shrikant, for joining a little early.
No problem.
You can see that Shoma was getting nervous. Okay. I look forward to this discussion.
Right.
First of all, thanks for agreeing to do this.
Sure.
And I want to first tell the audience a little bit about you from my perspective. Shrikant is one of the few people I was telling who, who has bridged many worlds. He has been an academic, engages very closely with the IITs and research institutes. At the same time, has been a strategy consultant in the past. He was, by the way, he started his career, I think, as a business school prof at Haas Business School in Berkeley, but decided that he would move into other things and went ahead with that. He's also been, besides being a strategy consultant, he's been an entrepreneur, he's been an investor, he's still an investor. And of course, one other interesting thing is he's also aware of the not-for-profit world and incubation and alumni networks. And I think one of the few people who has a very rich network across different worlds. And I think that's something which many of our participants should leverage at some point by engaging with you as well. More recently, I came to know and interacted with Shrikant, due to his role championing the cause of deep tech entrepreneurship in India via his contributions to especially the IIT Madras and Chennai ecosystems. And I think you're also part of TiE Chennai, isn't it?
Yeah.
And also, of course, he is the key person driving Keiretsu Chennai, Keiretsu chapter of Chennai and Singapore as well. So thank you again for joining in. I thought today we will talk a little bit about what investors look for in startup stories and pitches.
Right.
And I thought I will pick your brain for that.
Sure.
And we'll pick on a few questions and themes, and then we can take it ahead from there. I know that you'll be you're very straight about things. So I request you to not hedge your words. Please go ahead. I think people need to know the facts, need to know reality as it is, right?
Yep.
Okay. So while I'm doing that, people are welcome to post their questions on the chat box. Shoma and Pratik will collect the questions and make it available at some point during this discussion as well. So let me start by first asking you that you hear a lot of stories and pitches from different startup founders, and you look at a variety of different startups or different themes. Of course, you've been looking at deep tech, one of the few early stage investors who look at deep tech carefully in the Indian context. What lights up your eye as an early stage investor when you see a pitch or an entrepreneur pitching in front of you? What are those few things you note as something that strikes you or gives you that intuitive feel that this might be something you should look deeper or is a winner?
Right. Well, I mean, if I could just come out and say here's what it is in 2 lines, then everybody will just say I'll just go address that. But I think maybe before I do that, I want to set the stage that I think it's important for all of the people on the call, and this is just something I just firmly believe in, to understand that investors are as different as your customers. As in there is no such thing as a typical investor, right? I mean, and that is I think you should start with the recognition that essentially investors are people that essentially juggle risk with return, right? That's what every investor does. And the appetite of each investor for different types of risk may be different. So for instance, Prem mentioned that I'm one of few investors who looks closely and spends a lot of time with deep tech. And in fact, as Prem said, we have done actually since that time that you got that profile, Prem and Shoma, we have actually crossed 100 investments. We've crossed 100 investments in 75 companies. So in fact, some of them have come back to us the second and third time. But I suppose I want to use that as an example to say, we are very comfortable at Keiretsu taking a variety of risks. Okay, so I mean, what I was saying earlier was each investor, you can profile them in terms of the kinds of risks that they are willing to take. And I would say that, if you were to oversimplify it, you could say there is technology risk, there is productization risk, there is, if you will, market acceptance risk, and there is scale-up risk. Okay, I mean, I'm oversimplifying it. Let's just say there are these 4 risks, right? That there are some who will take all 4 risks. Okay, who will say, I'll take the technology risk. So the possibility that whatever it is you're talking about is not even technically feasible, has not been proven, has not been established. The second type says, look, I can't take technology risk. You have to show me that it works in the lab. But I'll take productization risk, which is I'll take the risk that you can actually take this thing that works in the lab and do something that works, addresses the same problem, but in the field. Okay, that can work in field circumstances. And then, there may be others who say, look, I can't take those 2 risks, but I'm willing to take the market acceptance risk, which is that you may have a good product. I'll take the risk that, even though you have only had 1 or 2 initial customers, I'll take the risk that you can get people that will pay for this, a reasonable number of people that will pay for this, right? And then there could be a 4th category that says, I don't want any of the first 3 risks. I only want the risk that involves essentially, do you have the capability to scale the business? Will it make economics? Will it make money? In large numbers, and can it do so in a way that is capital efficient, right? So the investors. Before we talk about what lights up my eyes, it's important for you to understand that investors actually, at a minimum, fall into these 4 buckets, and what lights up the eyes of each of these buckets is different, right?
Yep.
So I think you have to start there, and so if you take that logic, and if you say, as I said, I won't take technology risk, but I'll take productization risk, I'll take market acceptance risk, and I'll take the scaling risk. So what I'm looking for is, I'm not looking for you to have come and convince me that you have addressed those other three risks. I only want to know that you have solved the first risk, which is the technology risk. So then if I were to give a short answer to Prem's question, what lights up my eyes? What lights up my eyes is technology that actually can change the world. That's put in one line, that's what it is. I look for breakthrough technologies. I look for, based on good science. Okay, so I want to know that the technical risk is not, the technology risk is not there. And for that, I want to see that there's evidence in the science that what you're talking about is actually possible. Okay, at a minimum in the lab. Okay, so I start there by saying that I want to know that this is a great idea that's going to change the world, or potentially could change the world. But I also want to know that it is based in good science and good engineering. So let me stop there. Maybe we can then build on what I've just said. I can elaborate a little bit further, because of course it doesn't mean that I stop just there, right? I just want to. So it doesn't mean that I'd say, okay, fine, as long as it's a great idea, it can change the world and there's science behind it. I'm not going to say, sure, here's my check. I'm not going to do that, because the other three risks are also important for me. But the order in which it lights my fire is, the first two, I want to be sure you have addressed. And the next three, I want to know that together we can address. And so the third thing that I would add is, when I say we can together address, I want to, and we can elaborate, double click that, but I would put it all under this one nutshell of, are you mentorable? You seem like the kind of person that actually I can work with, because if I have to address those risks that I just talked about, which is productization, market acceptance, and scale up, and if I have to work with you and my money is being used to do that, I want to know that this is somebody I can work with. So if you
sure, Srikanth, if you take your last 10 investments, for example, and just reflect back a little bit, right? When you first met them, for example, met the startups or heard them, right? Were there some things which you would rate as top things that you noted and kept your interest levels up, and you kept going at it long enough to understand the company better, the founder better, and take it ahead? And what would those be? I mean, maybe 3-4 points which can come to your mind.
Yeah. So, I mean, clearly, at least for me, a Me Too play, and I'm using the word in the sense of, somebody else has already done it. A Me Too play is not very exciting. Okay, I look for things that are one of a kind, that actually are taking on everybody believes they take on important problems. So that's not by itself, for me at least, it doesn't light the fire. But I want to know that they have approached it with a new and different approach. So that's certainly one of those things that I immediately look for. And again, given, as you said, the fact that I'm a recovering academic, the foundation in science, that can they convince me? Does it seem like they're shining me on? Can I trust them? So when they talk about this new and interesting approach to solving a problem, can I trust them? That becomes another important thing. And that actually is, when I ask questions, when I probe, I'm not looking for full detailed answers, but I want to know that you have thought about it, that you're not bullshitting me. Okay. So for me, that's a big deal. That trust is a very important factor. One is, as I said, that you have something new and different. Second, that I can actually trust your answers, that you're not, that if in fact, if you don't know, you tell me you don't know. I appreciate that. For me, that's a big deal. Okay. Again, because I need to work with you as we go forward. Then once you go past that, then things like, whatever you've created, how far along are you? Is it practical? Okay. So I look at that and say, look, is it just a glimmer in your eye? Or is it something that you've actually thought about? How are you going to take it to market? Okay. So that's because ultimately the road to hell is paved with good ideas, right? So what I want to know is that you don't think that marketing is somebody else's job, right? That you've thought about the customer, you've thought about who is likely to be interested in your offering, and that you're actually, even though you may not have answers, but when I ask you, when I probe, I get answers that are thoughtful, that say that, hey, I have thought about it. So these at least are 1, 2, 3, I would say, are important, that you are taking a different approach than what others, normal people are doing. that I can trust you, in what you say, that you're actually being honest with me. And third, that you've actually thought about how are you going to bring this thing to life in the market.
Yep. So how do the other things play out? For example, some surprisingly large market or funding traction from other investors or pedigree of founders. Or for example, somebody referring you to them, or or some competition between the different investors in the investing world. How does all that play out? Does that matter?
Yeah, it will for some investors. Again, back to the risks that people take. For some, it is important to see this. The pedigree is a proxy for, I can trust you. Back to one of the three things I said, that that you actually are not going to, the fact that you're referred by somebody else might also mean it's a proxy for I can trust you, because you're not going to blow. This other person is not going to have referred you if they were not sure of you. So it comes back to these things. Personally, for me, I'm a contrarian investor. So particularly because the stage at which I invest. So what does that mean? I actually will shy away from if it's an investment where there's a lot of others that are in that same space, where it seems like there's a groundswell of interest in an area. I might generally say, look, you know what, it's too frothy for me. I don't want to be in that space. That's just me. Is that I'm willing to kind of avoid, and so in fact, honestly, I've not made a single e-commerce investment, for example, not one, right? But I mean, I say that, but then there was, lest you get the impression that I completely avoided, there was a company that came to us that was in rural e-commerce. So it was an innovation when it came to business model, and so the innovation doesn't have to be purely science and engineering. In this case, actually, I would not have invested, but I also have a double hat, which is it's not just I'm investing because Srikanth believes in them. I'm investing because I'm also leading the rest of my group of angel investors, and sometimes I need to represent their collective interests. So I might, for instance, in the case of this rural e-commerce company, we invested in them because for a lot of our members, they felt that, look, the innovation is there. They are a first in this space. So several of the boxes were checked. So I do occasionally, I will say, because I have to lead the way, I can't ask them to invest if I don't invest. I will invest, right? But that is not a Srikanth investment. It is Srikanth as the leader of Kiretsu investing, because I have to, I have to put my money where my mouth is, right?
Okay. But some of these trends have an impact on your ability to exit, right? At a later stage. So these trends, hot areas where a lot of investor action is happening, must matter, right? In terms of your thinking, in terms of how you would get an exit, maybe after 2-3 rounds or fourth round after your round.
Right. It's a great question, and there again I suppose I'm different because my view is that if it's a good technology, remember the three things I talked about, right? If it is a technology is addressing an important problem in a different kind of way, if it is actually based in good science, my belief is that, look, the chances are that with my help, that you're not at least you're not going to go bankrupt. Okay, now so therefore to me the exit is actually not the priority. Okay, and I honestly, and I'm not shining anybody on. I won't even ask people about what's the exit for me. Okay, because to me that's actually sending the wrong message. That I don't believe in you, and that's why I'm looking for. I don't believe in the technology. I don't believe in you, and that's why I'm asking you about what's the exit for me, right? So when I get into an investment, I'm getting in because I believe in you. I want to be your partner. I want to work with you, right? I believe in your tech. I believe in what you're telling me. So I want to ride it with you. And I believe that because it's an important problem and you have a different approach that's based on good science, that eventually success will come. Okay. So that's the way I look at it. And I say, look, if for example, out of the 75 companies we have invested, so today at Kiretsu, we've probably at Kiretsu Chennai, we've probably had, maybe 10 bankruptcies, and that is, I'm being a bit more I mean, not generous. I'm saying that, the number is actually only maybe 2 or 3 have declared bankruptcy. Another 7 are basically
Dormant.
not
Yeah.
growing.
Yeah.
So, but for me, 10 out of 75 is perfectly acceptable. In fact, maybe even 20 out of 75 is fine, because that's the nature of the thing. I recognize it. So to me, the exit is the E word. Honestly, I'm not one of those that enters with looking at the door, right? So when I'm entering looking at you. My eyes are locked on you. My belief is that, look, we are going to work on this together. And even if there will be difficult times, we'll work on solving the problems together.
And sorry, I want to pick on this point a little longer, which is when somebody is presenting in front of you, is there something the body language tells you? Is there something that the slides tell you?
Yes.
Is there something which you get out of the answers that people?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Again, this is all coming back to that trust thing, right?
Yeah.
So for instance, if it seems like they are, and this may be the academic in me also, right? Partly is I look for clarity of thought. Okay, I want to know that you're not trying to confuse me by throwing 5 different things that are kind of all, just because you're trying to show off to me that, I'll give you a for instance, a very practical for instance, right? Most of the time, my eyes will glaze over when I see the total addressable market, the SAM slide. I don't even look at the numbers, okay? Because to me, honestly, look, they were cooked up, right? I mean, you got it from somewhere, you put it together because somebody said it's needed in a slide. I don't even bother, okay? So to me, on the other hand, again, when somebody shows a revenue graph that is like this, almost year 5, you're going to hit 10 crores, 25, 100 crores, 50 crores. I look at it and say, come on, who are you kidding? Right? You don't honestly, to me, those are confidence destroyers, because that tells me you don't know what you're talking about, and that you're actually, in spite of not knowing what you're talking about, you're actually trying to convince me that, that I should be, believing you when you honestly don't know what you're talking about. So that to me is an immediate, I shut down. And I would say, look, you know what, that's nice. Let's just move on.
But there must be some things which sort of you would look for, right? And you feel that this is something which stands out, right? What are those?
For me, I don't want, I think, as I said, for me, the ability to know that this is good science, this is good, it's a good innovation is important. So what stands out is if somebody takes the time to explain to me. Again, when I was doing my PhD, my thesis advisor told me, his advice was, you should be able to tell your grandma what you're doing, okay, in a matter of, in a few lines, and that logic I think applies even in this context, which is that even if I know nothing about your space, you've got to be able to tell me in just a matter of a couple of minutes, what is the sum and substance of the what's different and new about what you're doing, in a way that is not, where you're trying to use fancy words, because we can ultimately look, we are, even if it is deep science, ultimately we are creating a product for the market.
Yeah.
So for me, what stands out is people. I love people who have clear thinking, okay, and who are able to express themselves clearly and articulately, and who have made the effort in their slideware to do that.
Yeah. Are there any? You have mentioned a few, but are there any other red flags that you look for in some of these startup stories, and which basically tell you that you need to be wary of that? What are the red flags typically that you see?
Yeah, well, I suppose I could put it in 2 buckets. One is what they say, and the other is what they don't say, right? So in the part that on what they say, to the extent that they are, making claims, particularly when it comes to the growth projections, and valuation. Valuation is a huge red flag for me. Okay. So when somebody comes in and says, I'm valuing this at 80 crore, 50 crore, 70 crore, right? And then I ask them, okay, can you tell me on what is this based? and they give me some bunkum about, we did discounted cash flow projections and, this is what we came up with. That suggests to me that the person has not taken the trouble to really understand, that investors are not, are also smart people. Let's say that, right? That not everybody is going to just take you at your word. And so for me, the red flag is valuation. Unrealistic valuations are a big red flag. Unrealistic revenue projections are a big red flag. Not having thought about go-to-market and not having made the effort to establish that the customer actually will be interested, will use your product. These are red flags, right? So I suppose these are the things that what you say in the bucket of what they don't say. It is when people make assumptions and they are not upfront and they don't tell me, hey, you know what, this is based on these following. Yes, my technology will work, but here's where it has, the limits of where, as we know it, today it works in this. We are aspired to make it work in these other things, but today it works only in this. So if they're not telling me the limits of what they have, the limitations of, and at the same time, the risks associated, saying, for example, look, here are the next stages in what, as we go forward. And we are very hopeful that we will beat this down. We will pass this milestone. We will do this, we'll do that. But here are some, some risks that you need to be aware of. To me, sharing with me, the risks that you're aware of is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. Because I look at it and I say, look, you first of all, that you are also trying to build trust with me. That you realize that that we are going to be in this together. That if you tell me something, you don't tell me something today, and I find out tomorrow in my due diligence that you didn't tell me something, that I'm going to be really, really annoyed, and I'm going to just say this is not, because it destroys trust, right? And without that trust, I can't work with you. So I think it is as much important what you don't tell me. And I would say that you should make an effort to think about my risks. Okay. So that's where I come back to the framework I used earlier and say that, look, remember that investors care about those 4 areas of risk, right? Is there technology risk? Is there productization risk? Is there market acceptance risk? And is there scale-up risk? Okay. And ask yourself, what are the assumptions that I am making with respect to these 4? And what should I be? I'm not asking you to beat up on your own company. No. I'm not asking you to paint the worst case scenario for me. No. Right? But I'm asking you to be honest. For example, if I probe and if I ask a question, come out and tell me. Okay, come out and say, yes, you're right. We have thought about it. This we know how to address. This we don't know how to address. This we could use your help in addressing.
And very often, there are aspects of business stories which you might find having inherent complexities, and that also turns you off, isn't it? Usually there are different aspects relating to relationships, agreements, partnerships, previous investments, so on and so forth. So are those also things that come up very high on your list in terms of?
Yeah, well, they do. Though I would say, even though we have done 75 investments in 75 companies, over 100 investments, we are still learning. Okay, because deep tech is a very wide field with a whole range of issues. As you said, we have made the mistake of taking researchers and assuming that they know how to reinvent themselves as business people. Sometimes that doesn't happen. We've learned now that as you said, co-founder issues. Many cases, companies where where we have not put in the extra effort to figure out what the chemistry is between the co-founders, whether anyone is bringing baggage to the table. Those are all definitely issues that we are learning to pay attention to. But that comes. See, I think the title of this was what do I look for in what lights my eyes, right? So what do I look for in the first few meetings? Because some of these things you talk about come up later.
Yeah.
As we engage, as we do due diligence. So I suppose what I'm saying, Prem, is that over the years now we have learned that due diligence actually has to be pretty robust. Okay, that it's important for us to really come close to the company, come close to the entrepreneurs in more ways than So even the proxies, for example, as you mentioned, we've invested a lot in IIT Madras companies. Over a dozen IIT Madras companies are invested in. And I can tell you they have ranged from companies where we are thrilled that we made that investment and it has been everything that we thought it would be, to others where it hasn't, where now we know what we should have been looking for, in terms of when the actual due diligence happened, what were the things that we should have been paying attention to, whether it is the team, whether it is the go-to-market, whether it is the ability to productize and manufacture at scale. All of those we have learned over time, but that comes second. Okay, once you pass the first screen, if you don't get past the first screen of I'm interested in this area, I trust you, and you're going to you have a reasonable understanding of how to take it to market. If you don't pass that, then I don't even have that second conversation.
Okay, so let me just move a little bit ahead. I've seen that when you deep dive into a company, especially in your case, I've seen that you like to get comfortable understanding how things work and how well they work, right? Is that typical of an investor? Of course, you're an early stage deep tech investor, so you do look at that maybe a little more carefully. But how important is it for startups to explain their technology clearly in simple words? How important is it to show data right up front, creating that sort of comfort for the investor that everything works, or it will work, right?
So I think the answer to that is you absolutely have to be prepared to share that data. It should be in the backup slides if it's not in the front slides. Okay, because you never know. Again, back to this thing about each investor is different. For me, I'm not looking for you to confuse me with throwing all that data, up front. But I want to know that if I push you, that you will share, that you have it, that it is not, you're not going to say, oh, let me bring it up maybe in my next meeting with you. So yes, I mean, this is one of those things we have learned that I referred to, Prem, is that, just you don't take the proxies of, oh, gee, that comes from IITM, that comes from the biotech lab, or it is from Professor so-and-so's lab. You don't take that as a proxy for that is high quality. Okay, so because I mean, again, it may be high quality, but it may not be productizable, or it may have some assumptions that limit the ability to scale. So what I think I'm not sure if I'm answering your question. I think the answer is that for me, I want to be able to understand the tech, and I want to be able to see the data. That it is not only that there's good science, but there is that you can share the data with me. But I often talk about it as you should construct any communication as a pyramid. Okay, I call it a pyramid, where the bottom of the pyramid is all the detailed data. Okay, so you should have your detailed slides on the theory. You should have your slides on what are the references from which you're drawing. You should have your slides on whatever experiments you've done, the data that are relating to that. You should have that. That's the bottom of the pyramid. And then you give me a summary version, and then in the overview, you tell me the tip of the pyramid, which is the one-liner on what is below that, right? So to me, that's a very important way to think about, particularly with deep technology. This is why I said that one-liner is what I would tell my grandma, okay, to tell her this is what I'm doing. And then the next level below that is it takes it one step further. The grandma says, "Oh, gee, really? Can you tell me some more? And on what is that based?" You have to be able to go one level below, then one level below. So to me, you have to have that as part of your original pack, the first pack. Again, not every investor will ask for it, but it allows you to be ready to answer if your investor does ask.
Yeah, in some cases, the investor might actually be consulting an expert in the field separately as well, right? So it does help in that case as well. I mean, very often you find back-end discussions happening with somebody they trust a lot more or know a lot more, right, in the field. And so on as well. So there are some questions, and I thought I'll take one or two of them as well, which is, when you look at a company which has, say, multiple products versus one that has a single product, right? How do you look at them as an investor? I have noticed that sometimes you want to see a sharp focus, right? But at the other hand, on the other side, some investors also look for scale potential, right? So how do you balance those things, and what are your views on this?
Yeah, this is a very tough one, particularly because with my years in the US, and particularly in Silicon Valley, the mantra is focus. Okay, and it's the mantra of meaning focus is a requirement. It is not a nice to have. It's a must have. But and again, I'll come back to that in a second. But in India, what I have seen is people have often said, look, because of how India moves and how things here happen, that if you focus on the wrong thing, you end up setting yourself back by years of effort to have to go back and find the right, go back to revive something that you kind of put on the side. So I know that a lot of startups in India try to have many eggs in the basket. Try to say, okay, listen, what if this fails? I give you something else that actually might work, right? But I'll tell you why I'm biased towards sharp focus. Is plain and simple. The logic in Silicon Valley for focus is that startups are by definition a resource constraint, right? And when you're resource constrained, the most important resource constraint is your own mind, is the management bandwidth and the time and attention that a promoter can give to the product or the ideas or the market that they're going after. So given that that is the biggest constraint, that if you are, and I'm also a big believer that if you don't focus, then the problem is that that limited resource of your bandwidth, you're sharing across multiple things, and the chances are that you won't progress any one of them adequately, right? So the chances are that you will be trying several things, but none of them you're putting all that it takes. Because again, coming back to deep technology versus something like maybe a e-commerce play or whatever, it is very, it's a hard road. You got to go a long distance before you actually start getting, particularly if I'm talking to you at the stage where you're still finalizing your product design, it's not really market ready yet, right? That there's lots of difficult decisions that need to be made. And so if you are splitting that attention and time across multiple market segments, multiple products, etc., my fear is you'll never reach the point where you can actually have a product that crosses that barrier of productization and market acceptability to then be able to scale. So my bias, you're absolutely right, Prem, is for razor sharp focus. And I say razor sharp focus, it's not so much on product, it is on customer. Okay.
Yeah, so that basically means that more focus on a vertical, right?
Yeah,
because
it's focused on a market
segment. Yeah.
So it's focused on a need and a market and a deep understanding of that need and that market. Now, I do believe that you should have flexibility to tweak your product or offering to address whatever it is that market and that customer needs. But you should have, to me, it is a non-negotiable that you really understand your customer. Right? You really have to make the effort. You can't, and that, by the way, you earlier asked what's one of the turnoffs. For me, what is a turnoff is when I probe somebody, have you talked to customers in this space, and they give me vague answers that suggest that they have not. I immediately say this is bullshit.
So there will be companies who, for example, have a product platform which they can apply to multiple verticals.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
If they were to focus on one vertical versus the other, there are sometimes conflicting demands, right? One
Correct.
might be earlier to market, one might be later to market, one
Yep.
might be more early revenue, one might be more higher in value,
Right.
higher in profitability versus higher in scale, and so on.
Right.
So how do you what do you think should be the way out for such entrepreneurs? Because we see this very often, that when
Of
people are
course.
trying to balance this,
Yeah.
the story gets weaker sometimes also.
Yeah.
And different investors have a different perspective.
Correct. And that is what you said last is absolutely at the heart of it.
Yeah.
And I mean, we can take an example of one of the companies that you and I mentored together in the IRP, and she's on the call. We don't need to name her. But this whole challenge of, do you target markets outside India where there may be a premium that you can make and where there may be more ready customers for your offering versus selling in India, where the market may be much larger, but it may be, that may be more difficult to penetrate, is a classic case of what you were just saying. Is that how do you choose that? It's not that this person is talking about very different use cases. The use case is exactly the same, right? But the market, one vertical or one, in this case, one geography versus another, it's a tough call. And I think, my temptation there is to say, look, you got to be opportunistic, because the one thing you learn with startups is that you cannot know what comes next year or year after. Okay, so there are so many things regulatorily that will change. Funding wise, it will change. So this is, and I hesitate to say this, but this is probably the truth: is a bird in hand is worth two in the bush, right? And I think that should be the general rule, is that whichever it is that you can get product in market more readily and more quickly and start generating revenue, is almost invariably the better choice.
Even if it means it is the value of that market is lower, because sometimes it affects your ability to raise money also, right?
It does, and that's why I said it's not an easy answer.
We have found investors who say, oh, you have XYZ revenue, that doesn't matter, we are looking at the big fish, in terms of value.
And you can't win them all. So that's why I said earlier, right? I mean, each investor is different. Some of them are looking at the scale-up risk. Some of them are looking at market acceptance risk. Some of them, and that's what, if you come back to your point, somebody may look at, this person who went after a smaller, more readily available market and might say, oh, there's scale-up risk there. There is really no scale-up opportunity. And therefore, they kind of turn away from it. Now, on the other hand, if you're smart enough, you should be able to say that, look, you know what, we use the, because particularly if you're a first-time entrepreneur, and I presume a lot of people here are, is you say, look, part of what we realize in building the startup is we are building our own capability and understanding of the customer and understanding how to be a business.
Yeah.
So if you were to say, look, we went after the more readily available market in order to build our own confidence and our understanding of how to make product, how to serve and support a customer, etc., fully knowing that this may not be the right market where we want to be. Now we know that. So coming back to what I said earlier about what you tell me and what you don't tell me, if you were to say that, look, I know that this is a smaller market and this may not be as big or attractive as you, Mr. Investor or Miss Investor, are interested, but we did this with full knowledge that this would help us to build the capability, build an understanding of customers, build our own ability to deliver. And what we fully intend is we have made some initial, and here's the study that I've done of this bigger market. It's not like I'm completely empty on it. I know what the potential is. I know what I need to do in order to get there. And with the right support, with the right investors, I will make that happen. Now that is to me is a honest and compelling storyline, because what I know then is that you have the one thing that somebody else doesn't have, which is the experience.
And when you think of roadmaps for your company and your products and so on and so forth, how long a roadmap should one have? Of course, startups are working in a very volatile environment. There is a lot of change happening around you. And in fact, your ability to respond to change is your strength. In that context, putting down long-range roadmap seems a little strange, but is that something of a requirement?
See, that's again, it's it comes back to the different types of risk, right? So somebody who is looking for a roadmap wants to know that you have given thought to navigating from the technology to the product to the market acceptance to the scale up. So really, they're looking for not so much, at least this is, I'm speaking for myself, not looking for the specifics, but just to know that you've given thought to the fact that you actually have to go through these stages and that there's different things that will be needed at each stage. So partly all the, what I'm looking for when I see a roadmap is that you have given thought to the fact that you have to get there in order to make money for yourself and for me and to have the impact that your technology deserves.
And then that you're aware of all the opportunities, the potential barriers, the risks along the way, and so on. And you have done enough homework, basically. Right?
Exactly.
So, by the way, I know this is a little off topic, but you mentioned it, so I must bring it come back to it, which is people from academics getting into entrepreneurship. So I do want to pick your brain on that.
Right.
So what are some general pointers on academics turning entrepreneurs, or people much more than academic, people who have been deeply focusing on one area of work all their life, and then in a startup world realizing that there's a whole lot of other world, I mean a lot more outside which they need to catch up on. So what are your pieces of advice for people from such backgrounds entering entrepreneurship?
Right. I think there is, at the risk of oversimplifying, there's probably two, maybe three things that are important when a person from an academic background is looking to make the change. First and most important is their own mindset change. Okay, and we'll talk about what is involved in that change in just a minute. The next is understanding that people see you as an academic, okay, and you got to actually help them with that transition as much as you're helping yourself with making that transition happen. And finally, I mean, also recognizing that even as brilliant as most people are that are in academia, that you actually it invariably takes a variety of skills, and you're probably not going to learn all those skills yourself. So you're actually, you may want to seriously think about that this is a journey where it's a team journey, that you have to bring others into the fold that you can work with, that actually help to complement what you bring to the table. So let's go back to the first one, which is this whole mindset change, right? So I think that what exemplifies that for me is, I'm sure you're familiar with this what's called the Incubate, I think it's called the Incubate program from GDC. Right? The Gopal Krishna Deshpande Center, where they bring this iCore technology from NSF, right? Which essentially, I mean, all I want to say there is that's a customer discovery process where they insist that you go and talk to 100 potential customers, and of course they help you structure that process so that it actually happens in an effective way and efficient way. But I see, when I went to some of the first few quote unquote graduations from the GDC 8-week boot camp, I saw a couple of faculty members from IITM who I've held in very high regard as phenomenal researchers who have got great publications, probably have a very high, whatever the index is, the publication index, stand up and say, I honestly, I learned so much in this. It completely changed I thought I knew everything. Now, that is a very powerful line, okay? That practically, it's almost a requirement for being an academic is that you think you know everything in your discipline. I remember that from the days what was that? Before my PhD thesis, what is the thing we do? I forgot. There's the Viva or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, a qualifier.
Yeah, qualifier, right? Yeah. So at that time, you have to actually know everything that is to be known in your field, and you feel like you're on top of everything, right? So, and unfortunately, many of us continue with that thought the rest of our academic lives, is that I know everything that is to be known in XYZ space. And it may well be, as you said, because it's a narrow area and you do know everything in that space. I think the first mindset shift that has to happen as an academic is that, that honestly, it doesn't matter if you think you know everything. It is ultimately, do you understand what the customer wants? Do you understand the customer? right? And you understand what the customer's needs are and what the customer's problems are, right? So it's not so much you're solving a technically esoteric and interesting problem, but a problem that it may be not that esoteric, but it actually makes a difference for the customer, right? So I think that is the first mindset shift. Coming back to, as an academic, you got to be willing to go through that and eat crow, right? I mean, because often you're saying, oh, that's a trivial problem to solve. Okay, but for the customer, it's a big deal. Right.
I also, regarding mindsets, I also often find that, overemphasis on the invention as opposed to conversion into a product in the market, right?
That's a fantastic
that's also
point.
a giveaway,
Giveaway
sign very often.
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, I think I often will say there's, and maybe you've got a venture center may have some language around this, is there's a difference between invention, innovation, and product, right? And that, again, as you say, the mindset change has to recognize that as an entrepreneur, you don't succeed because you have an invention. You don't even succeed because you have an innovation, but because you have a product. And what's the difference? The difference is the product is something that a customer wants and will pay for.
Right? And sometimes you don't succeed even if you have a product, but you need a customer.
Yeah, I mean, I'm defining a product as something that actually has a customer, right? Of course, what you're talking about is if I only have 5 customers, then you don't succeed because you've exhausted the market. You need that's the scale up part we talked about, right? So it has to also be customers at scale, right? So the first part is really around, and again, we can talk ad nauseum about this, but the first part is really around recognizing that as you make that shift, that you have to change your mindset, right? You have to change your mindset from believing that you know everything to really saying that, look, I honestly, even if I know everything, I have to make the effort to really understand what the customer wants. And I have had plenty of experiences with faculty, particularly faculty. By the way, faculty are more at risk than PhD students or postdocs. I think PhD students and postdocs are actually more willing to kind of make that shift, and faculty find it very hard. So in fact, as a rule of thumb, maybe, if you're a faculty member, you're better off being a technical advisor to a startup than actually being the entrepreneur yourself. Now, some faculty may be able to make that shift to saying the customer is most important rather than my technical invention. So that's the first. I said the second part is how others see you, right? I think that's again a very, very important thing. Is you've got to, the more you stay within the confines of talking about in your comfort zone, talking about the invention rather than the innovation or the product, people will see you as being this geek, this technical person who really should be the CTO, the chief scientist, and not really a business person. So you've got to get more comfortable talking about the customer, talking about what the customer wants, talking about how big the market is, talking about those kinds of things. So how do you get there? So I have a suggestion for people, and I've seen this play out in. I suppose just like many of you are PhDs, probably have been in environments where you have these, what do they call the PhD seminars, right? Where you kind of take your thesis idea and you talk about it with others, and they kind of tear it apart, and you kind of you then go back and fix it. So do the same thing with your startup ideas. Okay, so go to a fellow community of fellow maybe academics, entrepreneur wannabes, and talk about, but not about your invention. Talk about the customer. Talk about the product. Okay, so go from invention to innovation to product. Okay, have those conversations saying, hey, you know what? I went and talked to so-and-so about their problem, and this is what they said. So because this is actually as important, the reason I'm saying this is that you have to learn new language systems for some people to start believing it. Okay, you got to be able to comfortably drop the word customer, okay, and talk about it with credibility. So that's what will help you with the second thing about how others see you. Okay, and things like numbers. Okay, when you put numbers on the page, if you show me a hockey stick and I just probe, and the first time I probe it falls apart, right? Then you have a problem. So that is the second part. And then the third part I said about recognizing that you will need to team, okay, is absolutely critical. So this again, and it may be again going out of your comfort zone, not just your people in your lab, but going to meetings like, Thai meetings, going to, I don't know, Venture Center organizes these. Do you have a weekly brown bag kind of a thing for all of your entrepreneurs to kind of talk with each other, things like that?
Not a formal one, but cafeteria does the same thing. So yeah, sort of. Yeah, but it's a good idea.
And be open to finding and saying that, because there's a little bit of ego thing here, and that's why I come back to it, is belief that somehow if I'm the inventor, that I basically I have the right to be the CEO and I have the right to own the bulk of the company. You've got to lose that. Okay. Because having 100% of something that is not marketable is not a startup. It is, it could be a publishable idea, but that's where it stops. So you got to be willing to team with others and give away. Okay, recognize that it is probably more important to have somebody that can help you to sell something as much as it is to have people that can help you to solve the technical problem that is part of the invention. So I think this whole notion of, and academics have a lot more trouble with teaming with others, particularly if they are not technical people or scientists themselves, because they kind of, there's a healthy disrespect of people that are salespeople. Okay, what do they know? They're only salespeople, right? So I think these are three things I would suggest for an academic who's looking to be an entrepreneur. You should really seriously consider.
Yeah. So people should type in their further questions. I'll try and cover a couple of them which are still remaining. Last round, Shrikant, I'll toss you some few topics and you can give me some brief responses of what you think about
emphasis
those.
On brief. Okay.
Yeah.
I got it. I got it.
Those are very valuable comments. No doubt about it. But I just thought we should get to some questions also. So let me just pick on a few points and then you can talk about it. Sure. Suppose, there is this, when an entrepreneur is looking at his own solution, right? Should he be, or he or she should be focusing on a niche market, perfect the solution for it, demonstrate value before spreading out to other markets?
My answer is yes.
Yeah.
My answer is yes.
Yeah. So
that is my bias. It's not everybody's, but it's my bias. But I think the only qualifier I would offer is that you have to be aware of what assumptions you're making, because when you have to plant the seeds of its being scalable. Because if you are not aware of what it is that will make it scalable, then you end up with a product that is self-limiting. So I think the answer is absolutely. I'm a believer that if there's a niche market that you can solve first, go for it by all means. But be aware of what you need to do differently as you go to other markets, even as you are focusing on cracking that niche market.
Yeah. And would you say that the first niche market that, you can hear me, right?
Yeah.
So would you say that the first niche market they could pick is where they can clearly demonstrate proof of value propositions and product market fit?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That would probably be the way to look at that, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, as far as competition goes, right? How do you view what should be the basis for competitive advantage?
Yeah. So I will start with what should not be. Price should never be the basis for competition. Okay, at least you may end up with that, but that is the last resort. So I think starting out by saying I'm going to make something cheaper is often seen by anybody in the market as a sign of weakness. Because there's this, people equate, particularly if, let us say, if there is another product in the market and you're competing and you're saying I'm going to sell it at 1/5 the price. Okay, it doesn't matter that it only costs you 1/5. Okay, but if you sell it at 1/5 the price, they're going to say this obviously cannot be the same thing. It must be poorer. So the trust factor comes in, etc. So I think in terms of competing, try not to compete on price. Now, price competition can be the final differentiator, but it should not be the first differentiator, right? So the other is there is a I think there's if you look at competition and ask yourself, you got to be, instead of having, you see, I like these charts where people kind of show what is my product, how does it compare with the competition. But to me, it is not so much that you've listed 5 things there. It is that you've thought about the competition.
Yeah.
Okay, because invariably I know that you're going to skew whenever you put those comparison charts. You're going to skew it so that you have all green checks and others have all red checks. I mean, X's. So I know you're going to do that. So that is not important as much as it is to know that you've actually thought about the competition. And for instance, earlier you had asked me, what is one of those red flags, Prem? If somebody tells me there's no competition in what I do, that's immediately a red flag.
Yeah.
Okay. Because while it may be true that there is no direct competition, but they obviously, if it's unless it's you're solving the need of air conditioning on the moon, right? Which nobody is there today, so say there's so there's no competition. Practically everything on Earth today, there is somebody who's either there's some kind of a problem, there is some kind of a solution. Now the solution may be a non-tech solution, may be unsophisticated, but it's there, and it is your competition, right? So I think it is very important for you to be honest about what is the competition, and have thought about that and say, look, what is it? Why is it the customer buying from that competition today? And what are the challenges I'm going to be having in displacing that the current incumbent is something I expect you to have thought about. And while feature comparisons and all that you should have done, but to me, I don't read through that and say, okay, check. No.
Yeah, and sometimes that analysis also gives you ideas on where you could build a competitive advantage. I mean, if there isn't any as of now, it also alerts you to that, and then you can work on it, at least do something about
exactly.
it. Right?
And that is where we often will, it seems like a strange phrase, but we often say that you should be able to say, what's your unfair advantage?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And that is not a bad word here. Okay. And the unfair advantage can come from anything. Okay. It could come from intellectual capital protection. It could come from the fact that your uncle is the customer. I don't care.
Yeah.
Okay. But there has to be some unfair advantage, because without that unfair advantage, you are basically, it's not academic, it's not admission to the PG NEET program or something that we are talking about here, right? So you need unfair advantage in order to be successful as an enterprise. Now, of course, it just shouldn't be illegal, but you need unfair advantage.
What about hot areas of investment, right? You did mention that you are contrarian, but I'm just, there are certain technologies which will be hot. There'll be certain markets and applications which will be hot, and that will be driven by an ecosystem around you, right? It's not just one set of investors. So what is your take on that? And today, for example, if you're looking at today's ecosystem, are there some domains which are going to see a lot more action than others?
Yeah, I'm probably not the right person to answer that question. I think you need a futurist to give you that. I probably will say only what kinds of things do we look to invest in, right? Rather than what are going to be hot, because often, we steer away from the things that are hot today, right? Because they're not necessarily the ones that will be hot tomorrow. So I think, broadly speaking, there's no question that healthcare is going to be, for sure, is under fundamental transformation across the world, and certainly here in India. And the whole what happened with COVID, I think, kind of has woken a lot of people up that there are innovations needed in healthcare, from everything from the kinds of problems we are trying to solve to the way that we are delivering services. So healthcare is clearly a big priority area. I say that, but then I'm also a bit hesitant, because I also know that healthcare investment in India is very much in its infancy. Healthcare needs a lot more sophistication in terms and patience, and we don't have a lot of investors who have that. Investors that have been spoiled by investing in e-commerce type startups are not necessarily the ones that will reinvent themselves. So when you say it's hot, I think the market needs it.
Mm-hmm.
Will it be supported adequately by investors? Only time will tell. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think the government has been doing a great job with programs like BIRAC and a variety of other related areas. But I think that many of them fall short. And I have shared this, I think, I forget who the gentleman was from BIRAC that I met at Crescent the other day, and I was telling him, you guys put tons of money into the initial technology development stage, but then what happens after that? You're not supporting the companies. You're not looking at it. Takes a lot more to go from there to actually have product in market.
Mm-hmm.
So there's probably a lot more maturation needed before I could say that is, while healthcare is definitely an area of need and will continue to be in a variety of areas, as an area of investment, I'm not sure. I think there's a lot of maturation that's needed. I would say that. Obviously, again, the transportation, a variety of things related to
mobility,
how we live today, whether it has to do with modes of transport, whether it has to do with where we live, how we live, all of those I think are also undergoing change. But that's a bit of a moving target, because there was a time when we felt that the work from home thing is here to stay.
Yeah.
But it looks like, some, at least in the US, some of the companies are going back and saying, they're realizing that unless people meet face to face, there are certain basic human needs that are not being fulfilled. So it may well be that we go back to those crowded roads, those crowded office spaces and all of that, and satellite townships. We don't know. But I think that there is room for innovation in that space, where maybe we will find a golden medium somewhere down the road. So again, another area where you need a lot of risk capital that will support it. I'm not sure who or where that's going to come from, but that's another area.
Energy, environment.
Yeah, energy clearly, no question, absolutely is an area where, again, there's a lot of froth when it comes to, for example, when the early days when when Aether was beginning out, EVs were kind of new. Today, it's not. I mean, everybody pretty much says, look, that is almost for sure. The future does look majority EV, but I think that is maybe it's writing off fossil fuels too quickly, or assuming EV is the only answer.
Yeah.
There could be a variety of other solutions in the space. So again, definitely an area where a lot of innovation is needed and will be seen. So I don't know. I mean, I could go on like this, but these are just a few that I think we are looking at. Agriculture clearly, or rather put differently, food, and consumption, is a big area, because food is not just about agriculture; it's also about ways that you process and then deliver it.
Yeah.
All of those again.
How about environment?
Yeah,
that must be a tricky one, right?
It is tricky because everybody thinks that it is, I mean, particularly with the evidence of, or at least the apparent evidence of climate change, right? I mean, the floods what Bangalore is going through, the climate change, I mean, the water issues in China, everywhere, all around the world, we are seeing crazy things happening. So it's the big unknown. I would say in some sense, the environment is to our overall ecosystem what COVID was to us 3 years ago, meaning that I still remember what was the guy's name that wrote the book Homo Deus, right? Right. It seems like yesterday that I was reading it, and he said, there are no more world wars. There's no more poverty. There's no more pandemics, right? He'd written all those off, and he talked about how Yannick Noah was that his name, right?
Yeah.
And then here we are. We are staring at the possibility of a world war. We're staring at the possibility not the possibility, the reality of a pandemic that none of us were prepared for.
Yeah.
So I think it may well be that environment and the environmental issues driven particularly by climate change could be the big unknown that upsets everything.
Okay. So a few more, couple of quick ones.
Yeah.
Can you comment on, how important are government policies government mechanisms, subsidies, all of those in the equations that investors consider. Do you care? Does it matter? How important are they, and why do they matter?
Yeah, no, in the initial stages in any industry, government policy plays into our investment decisions, because we are again back to this unfair advantage. To the extent that government policy can give us given a particular startup or a particular industry segment an unfair advantage, we want it, right? So we are constantly looking for an unfair advantage, and if it's going to come from policy and my ability to influence policy, by all means, I want that, right? With that said, I think the flip side of it is you can't expect for any of these things. You can't expect the government to carry the load. Private industry, and I think if I were to put my finger on one thing that I think hasn't happened enough in India, it is the existing commercial enterprises that are making tons and tons of money, really getting a whole lot more into supporting startups. Okay, that to me is really where the answer is. Okay, it is not government subsidy. It is these big industries which are making money left and right, getting in and saying, I will work with startups, not in a predatory manner, but because that's always a fear among startup entrepreneurs is, I don't want to talk to big industry because I'm afraid they will take my idea and leave me with nothing. And there is a trust issue there that has to be worked. But and this is something that I'm a passionate believer that, for instance, in Silicon Valley, they coexist. Big companies like Intel and AMD and practically you shake your finger, KLA, all of them are huge multi-billion-dollar companies, that are working closely with startups. And there is an atmosphere of trust. Okay. And in fact, often the problem statements are actually being born out of the big industry, which says, go do this, solve this for me, because I can't solve it in my existing setup, given how I'm focused on delivering today. So you go work on this and I will buy you, and I will, and I'll make you wealthy, and I'll make me, and I'll have an answer to my problem. So this to me is the bigger issue. It's not government. Government can provide me that unfair advantage. But honestly, it is big businesses' engagement with startups that I think is the big missing piece in India.
So, Shrikant, we are out of time, but I'm very tempted still to go on a little bit. Sorry about that. Just a couple quick points on team, and also on how do you. So first, let's talk about the team. Red and good flags and bad or red flags, and then I want you to comment on people engaging with the government in terms of grants and so on, because that also has a double-sided effect, right? Sometimes, like, people get too caught up in the government sector sometimes, right? So do you want to comment on these two briefly, please?
Yeah, again, briefly. So teams, absolutely, no startup is a one-man show or a one-woman show. To the extent that you don't have people that you're working with, you are weaker. Okay, so team is an imperative. Let me just say that. Okay, and the earlier you can form a team, the better. Now, but that said, I think the one thing we find missing in most of the startups is, even when they have a team, they don't have a founders agreement. So I would say that a team is important, but please, for heaven's sake, recognize that you may fall apart with your teammates, okay, for whatever number of reasons. So you need to have a founders agreement in place which says what happens if the team falls apart, okay, and you go different ways. So I think this is an area that most startup entrepreneurs, the initial excitement of doing something, they forget about forming a team, or if they have a team, they basically, it's just Swami and friends, and Swami and friends don't take the time to put in play, recognize that it's a business partnership, it's not friendship. Okay. And that's a very fundamental difference, right? Is you may be friends, that's great, but that is outside of the business. And in the business, you're a team. That's a difference. I would suggest you keep that in mind. So it's important to have a team, but it's also important to have a founders agreement to make sure that you deal with when the team falls apart. Okay. Now, the second question on government and government grants, I think you had asked, Prem.
Yeah.
Look, I think, again, any unfair advantage is good. So if you can tap a government grant to give you that unfair advantage, fantastic, but don't become dependent on it. Because to the extent that you say, hey, you know what, I've got this government grant that has no strings attached, I just need to submit some periodic reports, and you'll get fat and happy and complacent, and it takes your eyes off the most important thing, which is getting that customer. Okay, getting that customer, having that pulse on that customer, to the extent that the government grant is actually giving you an unfair advantage in your search for that customer and that product that satisfies that customer, great, go for it. But do not, the grant cannot become the be all and end all. Okay, if it is just about putting money on your table, okay, go get a job. Okay, don't do a startup, because if you're not comfortable with the single most important thing is that as a startup is you need a customer and you need to be solving a problem for that customer.
Final thing about how important is it to chart out the future fundraising plans and a strategy to provide exits to investors?
Yeah, I think, look, that's also falls into this bucket of knowing that you actually recognize that if you take anybody else's money, you have an obligation to them, right? And that obligation includes basically saying, look at how am I going to grow, and how are you going to grow with me? And at some point, you may want an exit. And so if I take money from somebody that has made clear that they plan to exit in a certain time frame, then I need to show them the path, right? So I think that's it may not be a direct answer, but I guess it comes back to the point number one I made, which is recognize that each investor's risk tolerance is different, right? And if I'm if I'm an investor who doesn't have the tolerance for scale up risk, right, then you have to give me an exit before you come to scale up, right? So it's that kind of thing. So you understand your investor, take the time to do the diligence on every investor you talk to.
Yeah. So final words to our cohort here. Final words, a couple of words of advice. Yeah.
I mean, one is a word of salutation. I mean, as in, I want to say that I salute, and I've said this before to people that some of you perhaps have heard me say this, that to me, entrepreneurs are the foot soldiers of the economy. You're the people that have the courage to not stay with the cushy job, but to take the risk of doing something different because you want to change society, and you're doing it on all our behalf. And for that reason, I'm grateful. And I always say that every time, just like we salute our police and our firemen and our army men and men and women, I'm using the word men, saying that you're putting your life on the line so that I can sleep. You guys are putting your careers on the line so that we can have a better future. So for that, I want to say thank you. That I absolutely firmly believe that. On the other thought is, I'd say, look, recognize that investors are not, as I said earlier, investors are also people, right? And they are not people that are unreasonable. That as long as you make the effort to understand what kind of risks I'm willing to take, and have that conversation with me to understand, hey, this is the risk you're willing to take, whether I'm a good fit for you or not. Have that conversation with me, make the effort to understand me, and make the effort to get to address me almost as a customer. Okay, just like I said that you have to be sure that you understand the customer and you're solving that customer's problem. You understand your investor and solve that investor's problem.
Thank you very much, Shrikant. That was a lot of insights, which I think are very useful for all the startups attending. And we've also recorded it, so it will hopefully reach out to many more people as well. So I think on that note, let me thank you very sincerely for taking the time out and also sharing your insights. We look forward to engaging with you even along with some of these cohort members as well in the coming months as well. Yeah,
I look forward to it too.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks a lot. So excellent. I think with that, I will hand it over to Shoma. Shoma, thank you. Sorry for the delay, but I think I really enjoyed the discussion, Shrikant. A lot of insights. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shrikant. I think it's a great way to conclude today's launch event. I think the insights that you have shared, I'm sure some of our participants would learn from that and take it ahead in this program as well. Thank you for your time.
A pleasure.
And thank you for stepping in earlier than scheduled. So thanks a lot for that too.
Not an issue.
Thank you. Thank you
Bye,
so
everybody,
much.
and good luck.
And for everyone, this concludes our session for today, for event for today. Thank you so much for all of you for joining us, and look forward to meet you in the future events again.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.